Thank you for joining the January 2026 VMware TAM customer webinar. This webinar is organized by the VMware by Broadcom TAM organization to provide our customers the opportunity to interact with great speakers about content that will help them get the full benefit from their VMware software. Before we get into today's content, there are just a couple of announcements. Our next TAM customer webinar will be on February 12th, and we'll have the privilege of being joined by Cormac Hogan to discuss Data Services Manager. Your interaction during today's webinar is important, so please make use of the Q&A feature of Zoom to ask your questions. If we are unable to answer your question today, feel free to reach out to your TAM and ask them to follow up. At the end of today's session, you'll be prompted to fill out a survey related to this session and any topic suggestions for the future. Your completion of that survey is a valuable gift back to us, and we'd really appreciate you taking the time to answer those questions. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded, and your TAM can make the recording link available to you. And then after a few months, the recording will be publicly available on the TAM Services YouTube channel. That brings us to today's speaker and topic. We've got three speakers. We've got Dale Hassinger, Brock Peterson, and Onar. I did not ask how to pronounce your last name, and I'm not even going to do the disservice of trying to pronounce it right now, so apologies for that. But get some great content covering VCF operations and creating and using management packs. So we'll hand it over to Dale. Please go ahead.
All right, thanks, Brian. So yeah, today we're going to talk about management packs and some use cases, how to get started. I have a couple slides I'm going to go through, but then I'm going to do a live demo. I always like to show people the product working, so we're going to stick around. Make sure you stick around for the live demo here. So a little bit about me. Part of the vExpert program, hands-on lab captain this past year. Hackathon team captain. If you ever go to Explore and you want to have fun on Monday night, come look me up at the hackathon. I've been part of that the last 3 years as a captain. And there's my specialties. And if you want to follow me after this, I do a lot of the stuff I'm going to show. Some of it's in some blogs that I've created, and I'll probably be creating some new blogs after this. Or, follow me on LinkedIn. I put a lot of content too. There's the QR code you can always scan. And I'm going to show that towards the end too, that takes you out to my blog site and stuff. And then the smart one is the top right there is she's the junior architect. And I'm going to show you a dashboard that she uses. So we're going to, show some use cases. They might not be enterprise use cases, but it's kind of designed to get you thinking about ways to use Management Pack Builder or even the text display widget. I think I'm going to show you some stuff that you don't normally see. And then Onar and Brock the second half are gonna show the vCommunity management pack. So make sure to stick around for that. So they're doing some really awesome work. So the agenda, yeah, with VCF 9, the management pack builder is part of the product now. You don't have to install a separate appliance. Previous to that, it was a separate appliance, and I'm going to show both. If you're not on VCF 9 yet, then I'm going to still show you how you can create management packs today. Go through some API stuff, some easy examples to kind of let you see how it works. It's very, very simple examples. And then kind of show you some of the pre-built management packs. So yeah, my goal is if you look at the top right, it's to take a simple request like that through the management pack builder and turn it into a really cool dashboard and display the data. So hopefully we get through that and you understand the process. So yeah, with VCF 9, there's a marketplace included now that you don't have to go and find the pack files to do management packs. So they're pre-built. You can see there's a download button and you can do the download and installs right from there. So if you're still using the previous version with 8.18, you still have to go get the pack files. So they're making it a lot easier with the newer versions. Some of my favorite ones that are pre-built, like the Microsoft SQL. I have some customers using the Avi load balancer and the Kubernetes management packs. There's a lot of really good use cases. And then don't forget about tech docs. There's if you go out to tech docs and go to the VMware Cloud Foundation 9 section, just search for the word management packs, and you can see the results there. Tells you how to get out to the marketplace, even some specifics about the individual management packs. So yeah, for the demo, for some simple ones to get started is like GitHub and Zoom. I've in my lab I have a Synology NAS that I created a management pack for. So anybody that's attending this that you might have a home lab, that might interest you, and that's what that screenshot is in the lower right with all the gauges that are now in VCF 9. And then on the top right, you can see how I alert that if Zoom meetings is not properly working, it'll send me an email alert. So in my lab area, I'm using these management packs to get through my day. And so I wanted to share that with you. And when you create these management packs, you can do dashboards, alerts, some views, you can do reports. So we'll go through some of that. So with VCF 9, that's what this screenshot is. If you go under the developers section, there's Management Pack Builder. And then there's the screenshot. You can see a couple of them that I have in version 9. And so you don't have to install anything separate anymore. So that part is really nice that it's built in. So, here's a real quick example in 9. This is the one that goes out to Zoom. So if you know what API calls to make. So I'm going out to status.zoom.us, and then you know the path to the API that gives you the status of all the Zoom components. You can see very quickly the JSON is returned. I mean, so don't think that you have to be a developer to use the management pack builder. If you know the API paths and something like this, and I'm going to do a live demo of this to kind of show it better. You just make an API call through the nice GUI that makes it much easier. It lets you do that test, and you can bring that JSON results back. And this is what the version for 8.18 looks like. It is a separate appliance that you need to install, but it works very similar. And then once you get some management packs, I wanted to show before we dump or jump into the demos, what can you do with that data? So here's some dashboards that I created. In my lab area, I wanted to see how much electricity my lab was pulling because people would say, "Hey, you have all this equipment in your lab. What's that cost you?" So there's this smart plug that allows you to make an API call, and it shows me volts, watts, and amps, and then I can take that with a super metric and I divide or multiply that by what I pay per kilowatts, and I can show that it's cost me $1.54 a day to run my home lab. And then on the right with the gauges, I'm showing the current amps and watts and volts. This is in my home lab, but maybe in your enterprise data centers, you have equipment that you can make API calls to get this kind of information. So it's just, I wanted to show you some use cases that is kind of thinking outside of the box, just to give you some ideas what you can do with management packs. Here's a dashboard I have. This on the right-hand side is everything is out of the box. You want to see your vCenter health, do you have any hosts and maintenance mode, all that information that is important to you. In the center section is the Zoom status. So, if Zoom meetings was having an issue right now, it wouldn't be green and operational. It would turn red and it gets your attention. And then this is using the text display widget. I live in Pennsylvania, we're in the middle of the winter. Maybe something important to show your team is, what's going on around you. So something that I like to put in some dashboards is even stuff like weather. If you live in the East Coast, but your data center is in the center of the country, and you're like, hey, I just want to kind of see what's going on weather-wise, which could affect communications. To show that kind of information I always say, hey, grab your coffee or Red Bull that you like in the morning and have a couple dashboards that gives you like an overview of everything, and it gets people using the product more. So like here's an example. In my lab, I use Veeam to back up my VMs. So this is like an application dashboard. So there again, with these gauges, I'm showing the VM performance all out of the box, and then I know that that VM is running on this host. So if you're troubleshooting this specific app, you can see your Veeam or your VM performance, your host performance. I'm backing up stuff to a Synology NAS. So I'm showing, hey, here's my disks, here how much I'm using. This is what I have left. And then I put, another example of how you can show the text display to show weather. And then here's a sneak peek of what the vCommunity management pack will do for you. I'm showing all the Windows services on that VM. So if the Veeam service is running, it's green. If that service stops running, you can do alerts for that. So in this single dashboard is very specific to this application, and I'm showing it for Veeam, but it could be any application that you have in your environment to create that single dashboard that you could give to an app team. Say, right, here's your VMs, here's the hosts, here's the storage, here's the services running on those VMs. It's just a very nice to see it all in one pane of glass. And
Hey,
then
hey,
like,
Dale, just
yeah,
quickly, we got a question from Jared around the Veeam management pack. Are you going to dig into that at all? Maybe when you get into the demo, I think that one is going to be fairly popular.
sure, I can show that one. Absolutely.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. So then here's one that I'm using for GitHub. So, and GitHub's important to me because my blog actually lives on GitHub pages. So if the status of GitHub pages right now it shows operational, if that ever goes non-operational, it sends me an email alert. And then what's nice about GitHub is they also have a status page. So that's where I'm using that text to display widget. And what you gain by the management packs is that you can then send alerts. So when you use the text display widget, like where I was showing weather or like GitHub status here, you can't do alerts or anything. It's more for the visual side, which is still very helpful, but you just can't do the alerts. And that's where by building the management packs gives you that capability. Here's a new one that I just did in the last 2 weeks. If anybody on this session follows William Lamb's blogs, he released a blog to show how to pull from the Broadcom product lifecycle website the data. And as soon as I seen that, my mind instantly went to, hey, that's an API call. I'm going to turn that into a management pack because my customers that I work with are always, hey, I don't know when this version of the product is going to end of support. So to be able to make it easy for your team or like for me, my customers that I work with to be able to see that, I created this management pack. And as you can see here, I picked on RE Automation 818. And then on the right-hand side that I'm highlighting, you can see that it's going to be end of support is going to be 10/11 of 27. So instead of trying to remember, oh, which website do I go to, put that into ops, make it that place that you go to get that kind of information. And when you do a management pack, if you're a user of ops where you're used to seeing, hosts and VMs, if you go into the inventory, like I'm showing on number one, if you go to step two there, and like my smart plug, if I click on three, you can see I have 4 smart plugs in my lab area. And then all your metrics and stuff show up the same as if it's a VM and you're looking at memory or CPU or storage. I'm showing what's important to me on the electricity side. I'm showing you can see watts and volts and all that information and even see the history. When you click on those metrics, you can see the history and you can say, show me the last 24 hours or 7 days or 30 days or whatever you want to see. And that's the benefits of doing on the management packs. And then after you start creating a lot of management packs and you start creating some really cool dashboards, you're going to probably get a lot of dashboards. And if you want to show them in a knock, something to remember, people just don't talk about this a whole lot. You can, if you have like big displays in a knock or even in an office that you want to show specific information, you can rotate dashboards. So if you didn't know that, here's a quick tip for you. When you create a dashboard, you can say, all right, after so much time, so let's say 60 seconds or whatever, you can say go to from dashboard A to dashboard B and from B to C. And then you want to don't forget that when you look at this, the last dashboard, you go back to the first one and just does this rotation. And I have an example of that. Like right here, I'm showing they're flipping pretty quick, but you can make the time be longer. That once you look at that first dashboard, after whatever time you have set, it'll flip. So if you have a nice knock set up and you get these really cool management packs and dashboards, and you don't have enough displays to show everything, you can flip through them. And then that's a great use case of, I know people that buy Raspberry Pis and they don't always use them like they thought they would, dust that off, put it on the back of a big monitor, put it in your office or knock or whatever, and when you sign in, and then just have these different dashboards rotate. It's a neat use case for something that's not discussed a lot. And when I say a text display widget can display any information, you know, this is just try to be a funny example, but as long as you can point that to a web page, I always say, it's so easy to create some custom dashboards that my dog uses it to monitor the status of her milk bones and toys. But it can be anything that you want to point to. And a good example of that, if you live here on the East Coast and had Verizon for cell phone coverage, after that happened yesterday and there was an outage, if you're not aware, I went and looked, and Verizon has a website that you can go and see the status of their cell coverage. And even something like that, if you're, let's say you're in a hospital environment and all your pagers are running off of Verizon, to have something like this displayed somewhere to show that there's an outage, it's just, I want you to try to think about use cases that you don't normally use ops for. And this is a perfect example of that. So yeah, so let's jump into some demos. So like I showed, within the developer center, management pack is built in. So if I pick on my GitHub one, if we click on this, you have to, know where to point it to. So GitHub status.com is the website. I'm not going to verify this. And what's nice about this for you to learn is there's no authentication or anything that you need to do. So you can say, hey, there's no authentication. There's the path. And then if you, to get the full path, it's slash API v2, summary JSON. And when you do this test connection, this is the same as ops going out and looking for that information, and all that information about the status of GitHub is returned as JSON. And then after you successfully define your source, you go into the request, and I create it, and this name could be called anything. And the reason I call it, GitHub status is let me duplicate this. If we go back into ops and go to inventory, like I was showing, you know, that's where these components and stuff show up. So if I define that, make the request again, test it, make sure it's successful. It'll show you whether it's successful. If it's bringing back a lot of data, you can do paging. But to keep it simple for you to get started, I like to try something like this. And anybody could do this that's on this call. And then after you do your request, then you define your objects. And what it does is when you looked at the JSON, all those different, I'll call them fields, came back, here's all the data that comes back from that request, and I selected it. And you don't have to select everything. If you only wanted to see a couple items, you can pick and choose what you want. You give it the names. Kind of this name here is what this is. That's the name that matches. So then you have to give it a unique, and hopefully the APIs usually have like an ID, something to make it unique. And I have, in this example, there's no relationships, no events, anything like that. And then when you come to the end to the verify, if you perform a collection, tells you whether it's successful. And then when you click on this objects, you can see, like I said, something important to me was the pages side. And then you can come over here and you see status is operational. And that's the information that is going to get pulled into ops when you add that as a management pack. And I have a couple set up here. So if you're not on VCF 9 yet, let's just take a quick look at for 818. This is the appliance, and it's very similar. So let's go into, I showed some examples of that Shelly smart plug. Same thing here. Now this one is I did something a little bit different. To say the host name, I'm pulling this variable in, and that comes from, if you go under configuration, it's right here. So you can define the questions. Like if you've ever installed a management pack, and we'll go in and I'll show you, when you say, hey, give me the host name or that smart plug IP, you can then grab that name and use it as part of your source. And I'm going to use port 80. Yeah, so you have to kind of know, how this works, port 80, no SSL, and then the path to the API call. There's no authentication on that smart switch. And then here's the API path. And that's where you do have to do a little bit of research on whatever you're connecting to understand your path. And when I do this connection, right now in my house here where, my home lab is, I have that smart switch. It just made a call to that smart switch and is pulling back that information. So once your source works, the same as I showed before, you get into the status. Now this one I'm using a different API call. It's called shally.getStatus. And there's the full path. And when you do that request, you can see it's pulling back volts and watts and temperatures. It even shows my IP number, what my wireless name is in my house, shows all that information. And then under objects, that's where you go and pick and choose which objects that you want to bring into ops. I picked everything so that, if I had to do this again, there's some things I might not select because I don't use it. But to see how it works, I always just pick everything. And there again, when you look at the inventory, each one of my plugs has a different IP number, and that's what that was showing. And then I have no relationships or anything because it's not a VM or a host. You're pulling in information that's not VMware related. And then when you come to the build section, you perform your collection. And then when you successful, you go into objects. When I say Shelly status, there's my plug. And now you can see all that information. So if I make this all the values that it brings back, for me, the voltage and the watts was kind of important to see. And that's what I was showing in that dashboard. So if we come back into the dashboard, You can see the volts, the watts, the amps, and then the cost. I had some super metrics that I created to do the costing. And then even to show the BTU, if you know your watts, there's a calculation that you can do to show what the BTUs are. So that's just something I wanted to add. So you can kind of see that all this information is coming from that management pack. The Synology one,
Hey,
yeah.
hey, Dale, quickly, here's one we might want to answer live. Daniel Ogden asked, um, how does it decide what an object is versus a property? Is all of that done manual, or do you define your objects along the way?
Well, let's look at let's go back and look at the inventory.
And you
Yeah,
see, he
so
clarified the question too.
yeah, yep, I saw
Okay.
that. So
So
he
like
clarified.
this one. Yeah, your object would be like for that, smart outlet that I'm pulling electricity and stuff from. So each of those plugs is an object, and then within that object are my metrics, and then under the metrics is like the
Yep,
volts and
yeah,
the amps,
yeah.
temperatures.
So Daniel clarified his question a little bit. It's really not objects versus properties. It's metrics versus properties. In the build process of MPB, when you're selecting metrics or properties, is it always manual, or how do you define differences between properties versus metrics?
Well, let's go under that Shelly smart plug one. So here's all the values that came back. Um, it's determined here.
Yep, that's it. Perfect. Thank you.
It'll show you whether it's a property or a metric. And if this name doesn't appear the way that you want it to appear in ops, you can rename these. Also, I like to kind of not do that, but if for some reason it came back and it was some value that made no sense at all, you can actually change that. And you can see like for this smart plug, there's 4 pages of properties and metrics. And what's nice about that, even let's just show like for voltage, I'm showing it's collecting every 5 minutes, the same as it collects from a VM, your memory or your CPU. And if you come up here and you're like, all right, it's showing the last 24 hours. If you want to say, show me the last 7 days, give me that information. One that was interesting to me, I was looking at this earlier, like Copilot on GitHub, there's a metric or a property that is the status. So with GitHub Copilot, every 5 minutes it's collecting, and I see, oh, there's a bump here. So if you hold down your mouse, if you didn't know over these metrics, if you zoom in, you can see, all right, there was a major outage at 4:45 a.m. on January 13th. Then there was a partial outage, and then it's back operational again. So if your team relies on GitHub for saving code or some processes that you have that you're pulling and you've seen that there was errors by monitoring something like GitHub, you can always come back in here and say, oh yeah, there was an outage. That's why our jobs didn't run correctly. And that's the cool part about the management packs is I'm showing, Zoom and GitHub and, electric usage. Just try to think of things that are important to your environment. Everybody's different. What do I need to monitor? What shouldn't I monitor? I always say to be proactive. If you had GitHub being monitored like this and you seen it's, hey, there's a major outage and you send an alert to your developers that use GitHub, that they're going to thank you for that. It's instead of them troubleshooting, they can get this alert that says, "Oh yeah, there was an outage." So that's why our jobs failed. I always say that, think of things to be proactive and not reactive, even if it's not a VM or a host or storage or the stuff that you normally use ops for. Just think of those use cases and is there a way to make an API call to it? If you look at my management pack that I play around with in my lab, even temperatures. I'm pulling in the temperature where I live, and I always say, hey, if you have a closet on the third floor of the hospital where you have some network equipment and the AC goes out, and the temperature starts rising, if you can alert your network team or even your VMware team or whatever might be in that closet when it hits 80 degrees or something, it just lets you be a little bit more proactive, those kinds of use cases. Synology. Let's see, how much time do I have? I'm good here. So the Synology one's a little more advanced. You have to get a security ID. So that's where this is the name of my NAS, and you have to know the port. You have to know the path to the APIs. So you can see the preview here. And then this one does require authentication. So there is a password involved, and you can hide your password so nobody sees that. And when you add your pack to ops, you can put the password in even for this, the same as you do your vCenters and stuff. And then you'll go through, and then in the body, and this is where you have to learn your APIs, you can see that, hey, here's the body that gets passed to get the password. And then when I do a request, what gets returned, you'll see here's my security ID. So you're then able to pull that to make your request. So every time, every 5 minutes when it goes and talks to my NAS, it goes through this process. It'll grab that ID, and then you do have to add some headers. Synology has some specific header formats. If you noticed when I did the GitHub, and that's why I say start with something simple before you jump into these more advanced ones, to get all this data in the body. You can see here the security ID, it pulls in that information, and then all the values that it needed in the body. And then your API path, there wasn't any on that one. And then when I do this request, the first thing it does is it reaches out, gets security ID, and comes back, and it was successful. It's not showing any data on this, but that tells me that it's still able to talk to to my Synology NAS, and then that's where you get into the request. In the previous examples, I only showed, I was just grabbing like the status and stuff, but on this one, maybe I want to see the system or the core network or the file station list. If we go through these. This is where you need to understand the request. I gave it the request name. Here's the API and then the value. This is what then tells the Synology what to return. And there's version number involved. And then what method. I'm going to list the shares. And this is where the security ID, it's pulled from that first step in the process. And then when we do a request, that's now reaching out to my NAS and is pulling back all that data as JSON. So it shows all my disks. If we look at system health, I think this one shows a little bit more information. You got to know the path. There again, this is, under the API, this is, you got to know what values to add. And their documentation's pretty good. You do a request. And there you can see it's showing my IP numbers. There's 3 NICs in my NAS. Showing the uptime. And then after you define what requests that you want, that's where you go in and then define your networks or your objects. And that's where, I broke that up into disks and CPU and memory, let's go look at the NFS. When I go and look at that one, it's under the system utilization. So if you scroll down to the NFS section, you can see here's all the values that you can pull back. And I define those. And here's, the device as a property, but then all, the reads and the writes, all that is metrics. And I defined all those. I didn't do any relationships or events or customizing. The configuration is kind of out of the box. I just ask for the host name and the port is kind of unique for the Synology. But then when you perform the collection at the end, it's going through all those requests and pulling back all the objects that I defined, the same as if ops was going to do it. And you can see it was successful. And then when you click here, you can say, all right, let's go verify. So under NFS, you can see here's my read and my latencies, my total, max, um, to get all those values. And then if you like how everything looks on the 818, that's where you do the build. So that's now building the management pack file that you can import into ops. And if you connect the appliance directly to your appliance, you can push it if you want, or you can just click on this pack file and that'll download it.
Hey, Dale, any of the management packs that you were showing today have relationships? Did you create relationships in any of them?
I don't in these. I know I've done some in the past, and I know you've done some where, and what Brock is referring to is like let's say with storage. I was showing Synology. So let's say you have some LUNs that you are talking to a storage array, and you know that that's being used on a host, that you can do a relationship there so that when you go into ops and you're digging through the properties and stuff, you can then show that information and how it's all related. Or if you're pulling in, um, Brock, or they're going to show the vCommunity one, like the Windows services. I'm not going to steal their thunder, but you can when you're looking at a VM with that management pack, when you go down into the OS section, you can see the Windows services that you define, and that's where you start to add even a lot more power to the management packs when you can show that relationship. Yeah, my first half here was to kind of get people think about things that you want to monitor that's not maybe VMware related, but's important to you. Like I was showing, the GitHubs and Zoom, that kind of stuff. Um, so hopefully that gives you some idea, get your wheels turning a little bit, to think about, hey, even to add some of those text display widgets, when you're looking at dashboards. Here's Zoom status. This is a web page. And then this is coming from a management pack. GitHub. This is using the text to display widget. This is all coming from a management pack. Um, let's see. Oh, Windows, the application, that Veeam one that I was showing, this is coming from the vCommunity management pack. This is out of the box. This is from that, and this is my Synology one that I just kind of walked through real quick. You can show that information. So hopefully that gave people some ideas. Time. So I have a couple slides I want to finish up with and then hand it off. When I say that the management pack needs to talk to an API, with the ACC, which is the Advanced Cybersecurity that was released, is now SALT is included with that. SALT has an API front end. So if there's SALT states that you can create to pull some information into ops that maybe is not there today, think of that as a way that by creating a management pack that's making an API call to your Salt master, you could bring some information back. So yeah, so quick summary on what I wanted to cover. VCF 9, it's built in, no extra installs. You just need to do an API call. You can use your existing ones. If you go out to my blog, there's some stuff I wanted to bring in with management packs ready that wasn't available as an API call. So I was able to write a PowerShell script that talked to whatever that product was and return that data as JSON and make that available. You can make a PowerShell script available as an API front end and have it run scripts. So like if you have some custom software in your environment that you're like, hey, I would love to monitor that, you could do something like that. I've done a blog on using Fast API, which can call PowerShell scripts or even some Python code to make a call to something and return that data as a JSON. You can pull that data back into ops. There's a lot of great pre-made management packs, Salt as an example. So if I would, if you're on here and you wanted to learn some advice, I would give anybody is start easy, like the GitHub one or something, just to kind of go through the steps where there's no authentication or anything required. Reach out to your TAMs and your SAs to kind of help you get started. You know, just because I say, APIs, don't be afraid of that. They're once you wrap your head around it, they're actually very easy to work with. Um, the management pack builder, you don't need to be a programmer. If you notice, it was very GUI driven, as long as you know the paths to go to. And then if you want to get something really advanced, don't forget about we could probably bring in some professional services as an option to help you. So if you like what I showed, there's my website where I blog things, and then also there's Brock's and Onar's. If you want to screenshot that or get those QR codes, follow us, reach out to us later. And that's all I had for my half. I don't want to take any time away from what the vCommunity management pack is going to be. So hopefully gives you some ideas. Think outside of the box a little bit. And so I'll pass it off to Onar.
Thank you, Dale. It looks like we can monitor anything from any device
There,
and
you
combine
know,
them into the single dashboard.
I can honestly say there hasn't been anything that I haven't been able to create a management pack for. Some things are a little harder. Maybe you have to write a script, but there hasn't been anything yet that I haven't been able to monitor.
Uh, so I hope you can see my screen. Um, First of all, thank you everyone to being with us today, and I wish you a great new year, and it's pleasure to be with you in our first TAM webinar in this year. My name is Onur. Before VMware, I want to mention about my background. I was working with a VMware partner for years, and after that, I moved on the customer side and was doing some automation monitoring stuff. With all of these VMware admin expectations, as you all know, uh, different customers have different needs. We may need some custom metrics, custom solutions. So actually, all of these questions bring me here today. And this is the exact thing that I want to share with you, because without the visibility monitoring, it is really hard to prevent potential issues. So today, I will try to mention about the integration SDK. It is similar to the Management Pack Builder, but this one requires some coding skills. But with same abilities, we can create many different things. We will have an example called vCommunity Management Pack. I will try to explain the architecture, that the metrics we are collecting, and we'll share the resources to help you get started. So integration SDK is actually allows us to create our custom objects, metrics, properties, same as Management Pack Builder. But building a Management Pack requires some Python or Java knowledge, and it requires understanding of how to get data from the remote endpoints. Also, SDK allows us to extend the current objects that has been created by other management packs. So we have two different way. We can choose to create a new, completely new object types, or we can extend the current object types with this SDK. And with integration SDK, we can monitor any remote device that supports remote monitoring. So we may choose to work with a Python library, or it can be Java library. Uh, so we can consume all of these libraries or APIs. It can be REST API, SNMP, or SQL applications. It depends how you want to talk with the remote device or application to retrieve data. And the management packs created by the SDK actually requires a container register access. This is how our codes are running in the container image. In this slide, I will try to explain the SDK design. Uh, as you can see on the top, we have a cloud proxy that runs some adaptable handle services that executes the REST server and tries to retrieve some commands of the container image. And the same container is actually running our Python or Java codes to retrieve all of this data. And it's sending back to the VCF operations. So if you want to work with SDK, actually we have only three main class. So first one is the collection result. So in this function, we define our object types, we define metrics, properties, or create a new relationships between these object types. And all of this information needs to be located in the entire collection. After that, it will just pass every data into the VCF operations. So the second one is endpoint result, and this is the where we can modify or define new conditions, like defining or prompting the endpoint URLs to the user interface, so it can be accepted or rejected by your design. And last function is the test result, that we determine if connection information is valid that has been entered by the user. So all of this can be modified as you like. So the vCommunity management pack actually built by the SDK with the Python version, and it allows us to extend the current vSphere environments. So it's actually using your current integration to retrieve the object types, and this is how we can push our additional metrics. Also, it allows us to monitor any vSphere metrics and properties if it is in the vCenter API. So if we can see any metric or property, we can easily create some logical conditions and push another new metric for your environment. It can be your virtual switch, virtual machine, cluster, or data center. You can work with any object type. And also, since we are extending the current vSphere integrations, we are not creating new object types. So in end of the day, you will see all metrics and properties into your original object types. And with this vCommunity, we actually have some amazing contents like dashboards, views, supermetrics, and predefined symptoms and alerts. And all of these contents are just ready to be consumed. So what do we collect with vCommunity? Actually, we have some quite good metrics and properties. We are able to collect ESXi host advanced parameters. Same as we can monitor the software packages that we know as VIP drivers. Also, we have some NIC status driver and firmware details, ESXi host licensing information such as edition or number of days to expire. And we have also some virtual machine level metrics such as advanced parameters and virtual machine options. All of these metrics and properties are defined by the user because as you all know, for a single ESXi host, there are maybe 1,000 properties. So there is no point to collect everything because with this virtual vCommunity management pack, it should be customized by the user because some metrics can be necessary for customer A, but it cannot be used for other customers. So this is how we eliminate the garbage collection with this management pack. Also, we
Yeah,
have
and
some, yeah,
Anur, I was just going to highlight the first four. I think it's hard to overstate how long
yeah,
folks have wanted those advanced system settings, right? So I'll
yeah,
show them in a demo here, but if you recall, if anyone just opens their vCenter and goes to a host and looks at those, I think there's 1,300 or 1,400 of them or something. And we
yeah,
pre-populate the configuration file for you such that all of those are available, and then you can just comment them out as you wish, right? Maybe you only want to capture 2 or 3 of them or
yeah,
whatnot. But both the advanced system settings as well as the software packages and kind of more through this list have been on the roadmap for a while. And I'm looking at some of the names of customers here on the call. And these are
yeah,
use cases that we've talked about. In fact, just yesterday, we talked about the third one here around ESXi NIC status, including driver and firmware type stuff. So I'll show those in the demo, but these have been asks for quite some time. So them getting addressed by the vCommunity management pack is a big deal. Thank you, Anur.
yeah. Thank you. Also, we have some class level metrics and properties for HA, DRS, and EVC. And lastly, we have some optional features to monitor Windows services and ability to have notification events on the virtual machines that you can define your desired event IDs. If there is a triggered event on the Windows machine, you will see the exact same event message into your virtual machine object type in VCF Operations. And this is doable by agentless. So we are not working with any agent tools or services. Uh, so as I mentioned, this measure pack should cover all expectations without collecting some garbage informations because there is no point to monitor everything for a single environment. And there will be a really huge overload for your cloud proxies. And This measure pack should be suitable for all users. It should be easy to use, and we needed to work with different object types in a Whisper environment. So today, with the configuration files, it can be customized by any user. You can edit your configuration files that you with your desired metrics that you wanted to see. With that, we actually have a framework that we can work with any Whisper object type. About the project status, actually, it is not a official VMware project, but you can consider this like a Flings program, same as we have for years. So there will be no VMware support, just about the measure pack troubleshooting. But of course, you may continue to have support for product issues, but there will be no support for adapter instance configurations. And only features and bugs are tracked in our GitHub repository, and we continuously improve all of these informations. And we try to deliver frequently requested features to extend our scope. And the architecture is actually simple. As you can see on the right side, we have a cloud proxy, and it just initiates the container image. Then the main function called adapter.py, it actually executes our all codes. The adapter just calling our collectors that we defined like per object type. And all of these collectors just calling the related metrics, properties, or event functions. So once collectors has been initialized, we will have the entire collection result, and the adapter will just send the whole result into the VCF operations. And actually, about the installation and configuration, we can finish entire process with only 5 steps. So imagining if you have a container registry access in your cloud proxy, you can easily install the pack files, because the same pack file is actually know where is the container registry located. So if you have a container access, it will just automatically pull the container image and execute the first adapter integration. But if your cloud proxy is in dark side, we have also the workaround to manually down pull the container image and integrate with your internal registry. So you can have 2 options to work with. After that, you may need to modify your configuration files, because as I mentioned earlier, there is no point to monitor everything. You can just modify your config files with your desired metrics. Then you will be able to collect your metrics per adapter instance. After that, you will just fill your adapter instance with your remote vCenter URLs, credentials. Then you will just validate the collection and start working with the metrics. Also, we have some good resources and blogs. You can find the integration SDK documentation. You may want to visit our management pack repository for much more details. You can download and use our pack files. And if you have a feature request or issues, you are always welcome to use our issues tab in our repository. And for the blogs, thanks to Dale and Brock, we have really amazing blogs about how you can start working with management packs, how you can configure your adapter instances. This is really good resource. Also, if you don't have an environment to test it today. We actually installed the vCommunity management pack in one of our hands-on labs. After you log into hands-on lab, you may use the field demo showcase lab and start working with the vCommunity management pack. So, since this is an open source project for today, you may want to contribute or deliver your expectations. Actually, as you all know, you can just fork to our project and bring your unique features. So you may want to, for example, uh, you have a desired metrics or properties. If you know how to code, you can just simply push your new features. Then we can combine with the next build. Uh, if you want to contribute, you don't have to use your coding skills. So if you have an idea or some content like supermetrics, views, dashboards, you are always welcome to share your contents. That's so we can add these new contents in our next releases. We are also happy to shape a roadmap together. You can always bring your ideas or your issues and requests. And like old days, you can use discussions for asking questions or sharing your virtual community experience. Before I finish the presentation, we have another measurement pack called Hardware vCommunity. Today's topic is not about hardware vCommunity, but this is just for your information. Since we can consume the whole SDK abilities, it is possible to have a unified measurement pack to monitor physical servers because maybe if you know all of these vendors are using the Redfish API in the background. So you can imagine a single adapter that you can discover your physical ESXi host, or this can be non-ESXi. It can be Linux server. It can be physical Windows machine. So in end of the day, actually, in coming days, we will announce this measurement pack also. For example, today we are monitoring the power supply details, chassis informations, component health status. Also, you can see the firmware driver details for your physical server. And as a plus, if you have a Dell Tech Direct account, it's also possible to collect some warranty details, such as how many days remaining for the warranty information, what is the warranty details, if it is a pro support, MBD, etc. So today we have such these dashboards and contents, but it is only available for Dell today. But our goal is merging all of other vendor types in a single unified adapter. So it's demo time, Brock.
Okay, sounds good. So folks were asking a bunch of questions in the Q&A. So I tried to answer all of them. Anur, I think there's an outstanding one from Daniel around using SDK to hit the vCenter SOAP API. So maybe you can address that one while I demo. So
Okay.
there were a bunch of highlights there. Anur sort of covered the vCommunity hardware management pack at the end. I'll give you a kind of a brief screenshot of that, but that's really exciting as well. There was also a question on support for vCommunity in Operations 8.18 because originally it was only supported on 9.0, and that is being supported on 8.18 now as well. So I'll have a blog out today announcing support on 8.18, a new vCommunity build, as well as a new use case. Matt, I'm kind of looking at you here for this one. This is the ESXi host VNIC status. property. So forgive me if I have a cough here. I've had the flu here for a few days, but good to see everybody. A bunch of names I recognize on the chat. So good to see everybody. Can everyone see my operations UI?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I mean, this is the end product, right? So we'll get into the details about the vCommunity adapter itself and the management pack and how it installs and all of the things. But like Anur said, the first, let's say, 4 use cases really were ESXi host advanced system settings, ESXi host packages, ESXi host potential license expiry. And then we kind of worked our way into VMs and Windows services and host NIC statuses and whatnot. So remember, think of vCommunity as it's another management pack, open source. Think of it as a Fling, and it's bringing all of the metrics, all of the properties that we've told it to back in operations. So all of the operations features that you're using today, be it dashboards or views or reports or notifications or whatever they might be, those can all be applied to all of these new metrics and properties. So there's 2 main dashboards that come. There's dozens in total, but 2 main ones that I'm going to use to highlight kind of what we're bringing in for ESXi hosts and VMs. So here, for example, you can see it's a dashboard called ESXi host details. I've pinned it to my homepage. And there's some stuff here that we've been getting for forever, right? ESXi versions, server hardware, power states, are things in maintenance mode? Are they not? All of these properties down below. But there's a bunch of stuff that's new here, and all of it's being provided by the vCommunity Management Pack. So, for example, if I select one of my 3 hosts here, there's a bunch of information over in these 4 widgets that I get that we have never had to date. The first, and for me, the most important, is really the advanced system settings, right? So these would be, the advanced system settings you have on your hosts over in vCenter. As you know, there's 1,300 of them. So we can capture 2 or 3 of them if you want now. You can capture all 1,300 if you want. And you tell the vCommunity adapter which ones to capture via configuration files. And I'll show you that here in a little bit. But now you have visibility into every one of those advanced system settings. You can put them in a dashboard like we're using here. You can generate an alert or a symptom on them, right? Say, for example, you wanted to monitor cbrc.enable, for example. Is it enabled? Is it not? Maybe you want to monitor where you're sending your syslog. We'll capture that within the vCommunity Management Pack as well. I just have 20 or 30 different advanced system settings enabled in my config file. I'm pulling all of them back, surfacing them in operations. Same sort of thing for packages, right? So Anur was referring to them as VIB drivers, but your host packages, what the package name is, what the package version is. So you can explore package versions, say post upgrade, for example. Again, you can do any sort of alerting, any sort of notifications, should these versions be below or above a certain level. NIC status. NIC status is one that we've been looking for quite some time. As you know, in ESXi hosts, we'll present the instanced vNICs here, vmNIC 0, 1, 2, 3 in my case. But what we've done is taken the status, which is really determined by the NIC speed in this case, converted it to a string and said if it's 0, it's connected. If it's not, it's disconnected. So now we have the ability to tell you which of your vMNICs may be connected or may be disconnected. We haven't had that for years to this date. In addition, we're capturing things like firmware version and driver version on those vMNICs. And the kind of the fourth, but definitely not least use case that we hit for ESXi hosts was license information, right? Because you would get this various places, but now we can actually get it on the host itself. You can see as I select through my host there, these widgets populate over on the right. It'll tell you the license name that you're running, the edition, the actual key itself, which is hidden there, as well as expiration dates, right? So I have customers asking all the time, when can I be told, say in 818 and below, when my host's licenses are expiring? We now have alerts, which come as a part of this management pack, which will alert you should a host license be expiring in the next 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. All of those are configurable as well. So similarly for the NIC status, we also have alerts on these. So as a part of the management pack, right, which is metrics and properties and dashboards and alerts and symptoms, we've created an alert and symptom that will detect when a VM NIC is disconnected and alert you, much like you would for any other property or option in operations. So if you actually go to one of the hosts, it'll take you to the summary page, much like it would for any other host. And you'll see under metrics and properties, you'll see a couple different stanzas here. And we wanted to put all of them in this vCommunity folder, just so you know kind of where things are sitting, right? So for example, here's my remaining days on my host license. If I go down to properties, go into configuration, you'll see all of my various advanced system settings. Again, they present like any other property in operations, and you can take action on it. You can use it in dashboards and the like. Some of these are instanced, say vNICs or ESXi packages or whatnot, but we put all of them kind of within these vCommunity folders, just so you know where they are, so you know where they sit. Similarly, we're doing some things with VMs, right? So the first two use cases were ESXi advanced host system settings and packages. The second two were VM options and VM advanced parameters, neither of which we've captured to date. Now we are. So VM details dashboard comes with the management pack. Much of this information we've had for a while. We're just using it within widgets and dashboards to explore. You will recognize that I am using the gauge widget over here, which is new in 9.0, if you're wondering where that came from. But as I select a VM over here, you'll see here are all of my advanced parameters, right? So should I, want to know SVGA present? Do I want to know is soft power off true or is it false? I now can tell you that. Same sort of thing for options, right? And back in vCenter, if you jump into a VM, these are the settings that we're capturing, right? So these advanced parameters, these VM options. In fact, I had a customer that wanted to know, what their boot delay was across the estate for every single VM. We couldn't do that before vCommunity. We can now. And then you'll notice I kind of strategically selected a Windows VM there, but I have a bunch of different Linux and Windows VMs here. But the maybe fifth and sixth use case that we were talking about for vCommunity was around Windows services and Windows event IDs. So we can capture all of those agentlessly. And again, you'll just use a configuration file, and I'll kind of jump into it here in a minute. But I selected my Windows VM here. Looks like it crashed within the last 15 minutes. But these are the various services that I'm monitoring on that Windows VM. Here's the status of that service, the actual start type. And then you can see over on the right-hand side, we have alerts telling you, hey, your Windows service might be down, or you have potentially some event IDs coming in. So these also all present much like any other metric or property in operations. So if you jump into, say, the summary page for a VM, go to metrics, go to vCommunity. This was quite some time ago. We added the snapshot count before it was in product, but you'll see in properties, vCommunity, configuration, options. Here are all of your VM options. Here are some of the advanced parameters. We also get, and we actually didn't highlight this one, but we also get all the SCSI controller types by instanced, which was another customer use case that we wanted to look at. So the management pack and the integration looks like this. So when you jump into repository, and the management pack is out on GitHub. Anur's got a blog on it. Dale has a blog on it. I have 3 blogs on it going through all of the details on all these use cases. 2.71, I think, is available as of last night, which will also run on 8.18, 0.2.7. So here's the very latest and greatest. I'm running 9.0.1 here, but it will run on 8.18. Excuse me. It installs just like any other management pack, right? So you point it at your pack file, which is here. Go ahead and install it. Once installed, you'll have to create an adapter instance for it, right? So go ahead and look at mine. The adapter instance looks like this. It's pretty clean, pretty easy. You point it at the same vCenter that vCenter might be, your vCenter adapter might be monitoring, or your VCF adapter instance might be monitoring. There's a bunch of configuration files here, though. As you can see, there's ESXi Advanced Systems config file. There's a packages config file, also 2 VM config files, all of which we give to you out of the box. You'll just see an appended _v2 here because we want you to clone those out of the box configuration files and make them your own, because they will get overwritten at upgrade time. And then down below, in advanced settings, you also have the ability to configure the services that you'd like to watch, as well as the Windows events that you'd like to watch. And you can enable those or disable those here. You can see mine, of course, is up and running, but the configuration files, if you go into configuration, management pack configurations, there's a couple different options here. One is system defined. These are the ones that come out of the box, right? So you'll see it, and we put the kind of some comments here saying, look, this is the configuration file that comes out of the box. Don't edit it, clone it, make it your own, and then call that configuration file from the adapter instance itself. So I've gone ahead and done that. Here, for example, is my ESXi Advanced System Settings _v2 XML. So I've just copied out a few advanced system settings that I want to capture. All of those will be captured back in operations. Same thing here. I uncommented all of the packages just so I could show them in a dashboard. Similarly, you'll do that with VM options, as well as VM advanced parameters. So it's really dealer's choice. You can collect just a couple if you want. You can collect all of them if you want. Keep in mind, and Daniel brought this up in a chat, keep in mind that these are just properties or metrics that are being pulled into operations. So you still will want to stay within kind of what the sizing guide recommends. So, keep that in mind going forward. The 2 Windows related configuration files are the Windows service one, as well as the Windows event list. So I've just captured some various Windows services that I want to monitor and some various event IDs that I want to monitor here. I just put some in here that we're actually alerting as to up or down, just so folks could actually see them. And when they come in over in operations, I went to alerts over here. Here, for example, we have some notification events coming in. Looks like event ID 4624 was popping on that Windows machine. It'll come in with all of its gory detail, and then we can generate a notification on that if you want. We can generate a webhook out to whatever endpoint you might want, Slack, Teams, Google Chat. Maybe you want to send an incident to ServiceNow. So I think it's important to note that vCommunity is just kind of augmenting what we have today in operations, and all of the features of operations are kind of on the table. Anur mentioned this as a prerequisite in, I think it was his 6th slide, but it's important to note that vCommunity does require a cloud proxy, right? It's how we reach out to the registry with internet access. So if and when you go install this management pack and you go to integrate it and bring it up, if you don't have a cloud proxy that you can send data through, it won't allow you to save it. So keep that in mind going forward. Let's see. I want to save a little bit of time at the end. We have about 10 minutes. Anur mentioned this one a minute ago, but here you will see the vCommunity hardware management pack, which is in progress right now. We hope to kind of announce it or have it out eminently, but in this case, we're hitting a bunch of Power Edge servers, right? A bunch of iDRACs via the Redfish API. And we're pulling dozens and dozens of metrics and properties back to the consumer, everything from system health to how long has it been powered on, how much warranty do you actually have left on that particular piece of hardware, the model, serial number, chassis tags, CPU models, all of those things, including warranty information, which can be important for consumers, especially those that own the hardware itself. We're getting a bunch of chassis information, settings, including BIOS and firmware on the machine itself, all the way down to the details of the physical disks. Are they healthy? Are they not healthy? We get protected media life remaining on these disks. That's a big deal, I think, for those that are projecting potential failure, as well as firmware across the board. So with that, it's a high level of vCommunity, kind of a sneak peek into vCommunity hardware, which should be coming, like I said, hopefully in the next couple weeks here. But I wanted to save about 10 minutes at the end here, 5-10 minutes for any questions or comments. I think there were 30-40 questions along the way. Or Dale, Anur, anything that I missed that you'd like to highlight?
I was just looking to chat. Actually, I just want to mention, as you all know, if we have a metric or property in the VCF operations, we can just simply consume all operations features. So you can combine with your widgets, views, or create some supermetrics, or use your any other dashboards.
Mhm.
So there is no different method. If you have a metric here, you can work with by consuming the native skills of the VCF Ops.
Okay, so there was one question I just saw. If this is agentless, what is the mechanism for collecting the Windows data? Anur, you want to address that one?
Yeah, uh, as we mentioned, we are using the vCenter API to retrieve some property or metrics. So there is also a guest operations API in the vCenter level. So with your provided credentials for the Windows machines, we can initialize some guest connection through the vCenter. This is how we can pull some data into your operating systems.
Thank you. Manny asks, is this replacing the old telegraph? No.
No.
Anur, you want to answer Matt's, does service monitoring require auth?
Yeah, it requires authentication because with the guest operations API, we need guest informations plus the authentication details. Maybe you can, yes, this screen. We
Yeah,
can.
and Matt, I'm using administrator here, but all of the requirements are on the GitHub repo. So just have a look there for requirements. Andy, Brian, and team, were you guys able to run the polls throughout? If not, we could maybe run them here at the end.
I forgot to smash the button. Let me do the first one here real quick. We've
Okay.
still got an audience here.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so this first one is about use of the management pack builder, the part Dale covered at the beginning. Just getting some feedback on folks that are interested in that.
Anur, you want to answer Matt Schaller's question? Do you need a local account in the VM to monitor the services?
Actually, we don't, because we just deliver the authentication through the guest operations API. So we don't need a local account. And Alex asked about Linux. Uh, actually, Linux monitoring is ready in the background. We will announce it with the further releases.
Yeah,
So
Alex, there's a great question. And Anur and kind of the team here continue to work on use cases. If you go out to the GitHub repo, you'll see that there's a backlog that we're working on. And we'll try to click through them kind of as quickly as we can. So if you have use cases, Linux services, Linux processes, or maybe there's some other host or VM type metric or property y'all have been looking for years, feel free to add those to the backlog or make a request and we'll get to them.
All right, this first survey has been open for a couple of minutes here. I may end it and we'll fire up that second poll. But it looks like most folks out there are planning upgrades in 2026 to VCF Operations 9 with was it about 15% of folks already there. And then the lion's share of folks that are voting do plan on using the management pack builder. So good job,
Great.
Dale, building awareness and making it seem like something that we all need to go brush off. So we'll end this poll and we'll start the next one.
And I think as more folks are using MPB, the more content we'll have out there, right? Someone asked about Rubric, and I have a blog on that, and a pack file in my GitHub repo that folks could use to start with. Dale has a bunch of MPBs that he's built in his GitHub repos. We're sharing all of this for the community, right? We want folks to use it, capture any data that they might need, and potentially develop and share their own.
Cool. We've got that second survey up now. Looks like most folks are excited about the vCommunity management pack. It's been a great demo. I have not actually seen that live myself, so I appreciate you guys talking through it and then doing the demo. Really, really good content.
Yeah, I mean, just the advanced system settings. If it were just that, I think it would be a win, right? But Anur has done so much more than that with packages and NICs and VM options that customers have really been asking for quite some time. I was on a call with a customer yesterday, and I think they had mentioned that they've been looking for NIC status for years and years, and they have it now. So those are big wins.
Is there any guidance, and I haven't looked through the GitHub page, but like when it comes to sizing the ops platform, like, yeah, I'm assuming all these additional properties and metrics would require more disk, more CPU potentially for ops. Is that guidance out there on the GitHub page as well?
I think we have the number of metrics. Go ahead, Honor.
actually, for the sizing, we may update the documentation. But for the overall, with the standard cloud proxy deployments, the previous versions was supporting the 6 million metrics per cloud proxy. So I believe it is really hard to utilize the cloud proxy resources.
Yeah, in 818, excuse me, I believe we doubled the number of metrics and properties that we're supporting. I think it's going to be hard to exhaust that, but still, we will want to stay within kind of the guidelines of the sizing guide.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. It's been open a couple of minutes as well, and we'll share the results out so folks can see that for a minute. But we're getting here toward the bottom of the hour, so I may kind of wrap us up and stop the recording, and then we can stay open here for some questions and stuff. But
yeah, it looks like there's a couple, Brian. So one from Brandon: can we upgrade to Operations 9 prior to officially going to VCF 9 all the way? The answer is yes, you can. But Operations 9, also has some additional capabilities, things like fleet management capabilities and whatnot that do require this adjacent appliance called the Fleet Manager, right? So if you're just to upgrade to Operations 9, you won't necessarily have fleet management, right? Depending on how you were to upgrade. So if you were to upgrade via ASLCM, it will deploy that Fleet Manager for you. But I think in short, you probably want to talk with your account team or the operations automation specialist, regarding that upgrade. John asked about, will vCommunity eventually be rolled into the product directly? Quick answer is I don't know. Hopefully, because we're capturing a ton of good information here. So ongoing discussion there, John.
Yeah, and also this vCommunity can fix your today's expectations until the real product has these metrics and properties by natively. So this is a good opportunity to fix today's problem, but eventually those features will be available by natively in the product.
cool. Well, thanks so much. Again, great session, probably one of the most engaging from a question standpoint that we've seen in quite some time. So definitely appreciate you guys hanging in there and going through all the questions and doing the demo. Really, really good content. We'll go ahead and wrap this up and get the recording out there. Your TAM will probably be able to get this to you in a couple of days once it's posted to the TAM YouTube channel. Yeah, feel free to reach out to your TAM for any follow-up questions that you might have, and look for them to send you an invite to a session on February 12th, where we'll be digging into the data services manager. So thanks for joining and have a great day.
Thanks for
Thanks all.
attending.
Thank you.